Okay, I have this wild idea. I don't know if the Conservatives are going to win the April 28th general election here in Canada. And this is after 9 years of Justin Trudeau. What the heck happened? Okay, before I get into that, folks, my name is Christopher. I host the Open Minds podcast where I sit down with researchers and ask the questions many are scared to out of fear of being canceled, but I do so with genuine curiosity. So if you're liking my content, hit that like button, subscribe, tell all your friends, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Folks, just a few months ago, the Conservatives had a 2-digit lead over the Liberals. It was done for Trudeau. It was over. The Liberals were walking into an election where they were about to get decimated, and who knows, they might have been led into oblivion. But fast forward just a couple months since that time, and the Liberals find themselves in the lead by some polls, with the Conservatives tailing off. What the heck happened? Well, you see, okay, I'm not a political scientist by any stretch, right? But the reason why most Canadians didn't like Trudeau, generally speaking, one, he had this kind of like woke agenda, and he spoke very dramatically, like emphasizing these points and almost lecturing Canadians about social policy. You know, he called himself the first feminist leader, or he openly declared himself as feminist. He'd routinely correct people who said mankind to people kind. Like, he just had this overtly woke view of the world that was just off-putting to the average Canadian. But secondly, he did institute a lot more spending, and as a result, taxes went up, and just general cost of living went up. Now, of course, people will say, well, that's because of the global economy, COVID, etc., etc. Generally, people understand that, but they look to the Prime Minister, fairly or unfairly, to rectify that for their individual needs. And Trudeau was much more focused on lower income communities, potentially, not so much the middle class, something that he actually campaigned to stand up for in 2015. So of course, given all of that, the Conservatives had a field day. Pierre Poilievre did not hesitate any chance he got to basically ridicule Trudeau for foibles, things that he said that were woke, driving costs up for Canadians, housing, taxes, etc. It made for great TV, great social media, great YouTube for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, and most Canadians were just done with Trudeau. I would argue, near the end of his term, even moderates who are typically liberal, were like, yeah, I'm kind of over Trudeau now. It's time we change up the leadership. But people were always questioning Poilievre. You see, I don't know if people really were voting for Poilievre or they were voting against the idea of Justin Trudeau again. Fundamentally points out a challenge for Poilievre because unlike Trudeau, people are looking for more stability, they're looking for more leadership, they're looking for someone who's been through it, who can steer clear in economic downturns to help the economy up. Those things aren't really something that Pierre Poilievre has proven himself capable of. You see, Poilievre is great, but he's great at being very attacking towards the Liberals. He hasn't demonstrated to most Canadians that he would be competent in leading a G7 economy and lowering your taxes. He hasn't been in a position that actually can do that. So that was always his challenge. So interestingly enough, Trudeau steps down and the Liberals select Mark Carney to replace him. Now, Mark Carney is not woke. He's a former Bank of England governor, and he's been in leadership positions before, so he removes all the things that the average Canadian did not like in Trudeau. He's not woke. He's not going to tweet out that he's a feminist or he's, fighting hate or whatever. And he's also a leader or has been in leadership positions for the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. And this is why I think more moderates are going to select Mark Carney over Pierre Poilievre. I'll give you an example. He was recently doing a pit stop on the campaign in Winnipeg, and look at the podium and look what he has to say. The fact that that podium said Canada's strong, change the red with the blue, and that's a conservative statement. That would be a conservative platform and podium if the color was blue. There's nothing unique about those words that make you think liberal. So Mark Carney comes in and he rectifies the issues that people had with Justin Trudeau, but also Donald Trump institutes tariffs on Canada. And the Liberals laser-like focus on making sure they're standing up for Canadians and are going to fight these tariffs. Now, this is an interesting pivot because unlike the Liberals in the past, suddenly nationalism is a thing. People are buying Canadians, standing up for Canada, stealing the very base of the Conservatives and the Conservative playbook. Conservatives are the ones who are arguing for more nationalism, more pride in Canadian goods, bringing back jobs to Canada, etc. And the Liberals are literally saying and doing this, stealing the base from the Conservatives. And so now Poilievre has a really hard task in front of him. How does he convince otherwise moderate Canadians to vote Conservative in an election where his opponent on the Liberal side is nothing like Justin Trudeau? Not woke, and he doesn't want probably to raise your taxes, even though probably your taxes will be raised regardless of who's in power. That's a separate conversation. But the reality is that the opponent in Mark Carney addresses all of the concerns that the Conservatives have been raising, and they seem so laser-like focused on reducing tariffs. So if you're a moderate, why would you vote Conservative, would be the question. What unique advantage do the Conservatives have that the Liberals don't? And the only unique advantage, I would say, is we've had 9 years of Liberal rule. Maybe some are just done with the Liberals because they're corrupt, wasteful, etc. And the only one they want is a Conservative. In that case, you can't win those people over. But there's a lot of Canadians who did not like Trudeau, but were still Liberal. And so now their ask has been answered. They have in a leader not what they wanted in Trudeau, but what they want from a stability perspective. The last point I'll make about this, it reminds me so much of Stephen Harper in 2006. Stephen Harper in 2006 was just this candidate. He wasn't charismatic. He wasn't this guy that people really gravitated to. He was just Stephen Harper, a policy wonk on a lot of things. But Liberals painted him out to be this guy who's going to cut your after school programs and reintroduce strong abortion restrictions and make things very difficult for you to engage in civic liberties and freedoms. And he did none of those things when in office. In fact, I would argue Stephen Harper, on many issues that he wrote about, he didn't touch them, social issues in particular, because he understood in order to govern, you need to come back to the middle. And so this middle is where I find the Liberals are now at. But in being in the middle, the Conservatives are now crowded out because they can't really distinguish themselves from the Liberals like they could under Justin Trudeau. So all of this to say, I would love to know what you think, because I see the tides shifting, and it's not a referendum necessarily on the Liberals. It's a referendum on Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau, his time is over, but the Liberals have clearly said, not only do we want to see the back of him, we want to elect a leader who is the almost complete polar opposite of Justin Trudeau. We want the Trudeau mark to be erased as quickly as possible so we can get back into the Prime Minister's office. What do you think about this? Do you agree? Do you see Canadians voting Liberal in the next election more than Conservative? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd be curious to know what you think and whether or not Canadians will elect Mark Carney. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one.